Welcome to Photoactive, a podcast about photography and technology. I'm Kirk McElhearn.
And I'm Jeff Carlson.
So this is one of those episodes where we don't have a topic.
We have a topic. We have a few topics.
Well, we've got a few things we want to talk about, but it's not a topic. It's not an overarching topic like our last episode where we talked 3 hours about the Apple Watch Ultra 3.
Oh, I thought we were still talking about that. Isn't this part 2 of the Apple Watch part 3?
Part 2 of 3 parts, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what are we talking about then?
So what are we talking about? Well, there were a couple of things. So what's really great about you and I is that every once in a while you'll just send me something out of the blue. And it usually pops up because of our time difference, you in the UK, me in Seattle, usually pops up at like 2 o'clock in the morning or something when I don't see it. But the thing that you sent me just recently is something that surprises me because it hasn't been a problem, but also that so few people know it even exists. Do you want to take over since this was yours?
Well, I think a lot of people know it exists because there's an article in The Verge.
Well, no, I mean the feature. Sorry.
Oh, okay, yes. Now,
we're talking about different things.
Because I sent you a few things. That's why I'm trying to figure out here. Okay. No, there's a new feature. And we were talking before the show. I didn't know until a couple of years ago, and I don't know how long this feature has been available on the iPhone, that if you swipe left from the right side of the display, it opens the camera app.
When it's
and
locked.
You have to be
when the phone is locked.
When the camera's locked. And you have to be at the edge of the right and swipe the same way you swipe in a list. And if you're not at the edge, then it goes halfway and gets stuck. And I don't really use this. I would use the button on the front, press and hold the button that's on the lock screen, or just unlock the camera and tap the camera icon. And since iOS 18, I find that sometimes I take my phone out of my pocket and it's switched to the camera already. It's just like a light touch opens up the camera app. So in the next version of the operating system, 26.1, the beta that was released, I think, yesterday. I'm not installing the betas. This is reporting that I'm getting from online. There will be an option to turn that off. So you can swipe all you want and the camera app doesn't open. But even you said that this has been happening to you a little bit, hasn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, this has actually been my preferred method of getting to the camera, even more so than the little button on the lock screen, which I always found to be kind of finicky. Like, did I press it long enough? Did I, whatever.
Right. Because you don't tap it. You have to press and hold.
You have to press and hold.
For like a second.
Which makes sense so that you aren't inadvertently turning it on. But,
Like when you take your phone out of your pocket now with iOS 18.
Exactly. So now it's like they found a different way to trigger an automatic camera launch. And so this is my preferred way of launching the camera. And I have also been like, I think maybe they turned up the sensitivity on the touch interface or the touch reactions, because I am also seeing more times when I've inadvertently either opened the camera or maybe, like I was saying earlier, if I'm listening to music and the music app is open and I set my phone down, if I just touch a little part of the screen, maybe it jumps to a different song. So, I mean, it's interesting that they're having to add a bunch of new settings for these things, but I'm glad they're there. I mean, as another example, I believe they added a setting in iOS 26 for the camera control button.
Yes.
Which helps to also prevent accidental camera launches by grabbing that or pushing that. So again, it's interesting that Apple has so many different ways you can do this, and that they are having to not backtrack, but sort of put in more safeguards, because real world use, people have been running up against these irritations.
So there's another change in 26.1, and again, we're on the iPhone, and I have thoughts about this. So there is a setting to, what would we say, mitigate liquid glass? So to make the translucency less translucent without going to the reduced transparency setting in the accessibility settings. And Here's my thought. When the betas came out in June and everyone who installed them, designers, developers, tech writers, complained that this is ugly and garbage and everything, Apple was like, it's great. We love it. We're not going to change it. Then when the operating systems came out in September and normies found how bad it is, Apple realized that they had to change it because that they made a piece of crap. And I'm talking to you now on my Mac where I have the reduced transparency setting turned on. And you can even put a button in the toolbar to toggle it, which I need to do sometimes for screenshots where I need to show them without the reduced transparency setting on. But I think they realized that they made crap and that they don't care what developers, designers, early adopters care. But when your grandmother gets their phone and can't read anything, that's when the complaints start.
I'm sorry.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
I think you're a little bit wrong. No, I don't think you're wrong. I think you are over-enthusiastic in your opinion. I don't mind the glass. I kind of like it. I like what it's trying to do. I'm not going to say what you said was wrong because the early versions in the betas were much more glassy and there was more problems in terms of like things that were overlapping, and some of those things are still there. I still like the idea of it. And I tried turning on the accessibility. It's reduce transparency.
Reduce transparency.
Yeah. I tried that and I thought that was too flat. But I think that I don't mind the glass, and there are fewer places where it's been a problem because they've actually been tweaking this from the early betas into the release and now the 26.1 betas. And I think basically they came to the realization that not everybody likes this. We need to do something about it. And that something shouldn't be triggering. It's kind of the glass nuclear option, which is going into accessibility and turning on this setting, which just removes it entirely.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't remove it entirely. It mutes it a lot, but there's still some translucency. So if I have reduced transparency on and I open a menu, I can still see a little bit of what's behind the menu.
Okay, yeah.
It's not as blatant as the normal setting, but I still see a little bit.
Okay, but it's not that glassy effect. So the translucency is there.
Well, you don't get the glassy effect in menus, right? But you get the glassy effect in Control Center, for example, on a Mac, and it's horrid. How am I supposed to read white text on a relatively light background with the shimmery, stuffy stuff? And it's not made for people. It's made for... Jeff is losing his
the shimmery, stuffy stuff.
Coffee there. He's laughing. That's what it is. That's what it looks like. It looks like candy. It looks like a toy. It's a Fisher-Price operating system.
There you go. Well, so
in certain areas, but how should? Okay, just from a usability standpoint, a menu has text that we need to read on a background. I'm in the normal setting right now, and I'm looking at the menus, and I see what's behind it, which is making it more difficult to read the text. How is that considered to be usability? In what world do they just have tiny windows so the menus never cover them?
I have no answer to that. No, you're making a great point. And to go back to this new feature that's going to come out in 26.1, where you can choose either glass or tinted, even that, at least in the beta that I've seen so far, is still very limited. So, like, it's not a switch that just gets rid of glass. It makes things a little less glassy. But
tinted is the wrong word because on the iPhone and iPad, tinted icons are icons tinted with a color. So it's not even the right word. If you customize your home screen and you choose the options for icons, tinted is when you choose a color to make the icons monochromatic with a color. So there's a terminology problem.
So what you're saying is maybe this has not been super well thought through on Apple's part.
I want to say that some designers thought it was hip. Think back to iOS 7, right? Where everything went from skeuomorphism to flat. And
Mm-hmm.
as iOS 7 progressed, they toned it back and got to something more normal. And it's the same kind of thing here. Designers, when they're looking at this, they're thinking how cool it is, but they're not thinking in terms of usability. And I mean, this is a real problem, that good design isn't necessarily good usability, and vice versa. What you may want to design for, say, a magazine ad, right? Or a graphic, I don't know, a poster or something might look nice. But when you have to actually read things like, again, I'm looking at Control Center on the Mac. It's white text on a shimmery background. Depending on what your desktop background looks like, it makes it really hard to read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, I want to call out one app that's done something really interesting. It's Acorn. So Acorn is an image editing app, and you can use it for photo editing. I really don't. I use it for all my screenshots. Every screenshot I take that needs to be edited goes through Acorn. And Acorn released an update a couple weeks ago. And when you install the update, you see a screen showing you two options. You can either have liquid glass palettes or you can have classic palettes. So in the liquid glass palettes, imagine you're editing an image, right? Do you want your palettes to be see-through while you're trying to concentrate on your image? No. So you can turn it off. And if you go into the settings of Acorn, you can choose liquid glass palettes and you can turn it back on and you can have that shimmery stuff.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yes,
Well,
and I would not be surprised if more design apps do that, because you don't want that kind of a distraction in a design app. You want, like, I'm not a dark theme person, but I understand that when you go into edit mode in the Photos app, it makes sense for it to go dark because you don't want anything around it to distract you. You don't want your perception of colors to be distracted by the colors around, like on your desktop or in other windows. And that makes sense. Yeah. But the idea of, I don't know, the idea of introducing something that makes it harder to see. So in the Photos app, even with reduced transparency off, it's all opaque, right? But in other apps, it's not. The sidebars are semi-see-through, etc.
Okay. Yeah. I see where you're coming from. I still like the fact that they have done this. I like the idea behind it. And clearly they're trying to work through all of the possibilities of making it work, trying to find the right balance. Honestly, I think what we're going to probably end up with is some sort of display slider that says, like, how glassy do you want this to be? Do you want it to be like full on glassy?
Okay, if there were 3 increments, yes, but not something with a continuous incremental slider, because that introduces a whole bunch of, you get artifacts at certain points, which wouldn't be good. I could say, I think on off is good. I think on intermediate off is probably problematic, but it's an interesting idea to think about that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and actually this kind of leads into our next possible topic, since we're talking about interfaces. I asked you earlier how much you had a chance to use the new iOS 26 camera app, which has a new interface. And you went on at length about all of the hours that you've spent taking pictures with your iPhone using this new interface. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm trying to see what I said here. I said, I've pressed the shutter button a few times, yeah. And I've accidentally triggered the camera a few times with that sliding thing, which they're going to fix. Yes, I've taken a few photos, but I mean, we talked about this previously, how they simplified the interface and you've got a photo button and a video button. And this is probably the best UI change that they've made in all the operating systems, simplifying an app that was incredibly complex. Notice there's no translucency or transparent. Oh, yes, there is when you look down at the bottom.
A little bit.
A little bit.
It's pretty minimal.
Yeah. But this was a good change. And again, I think they're starting to – this is the grandmother test. If your grandmother can't figure it out, then it's not going to sell. You've got to be able to buy iPhones for your parents, your grandparents, and recommend them to your aunts and uncles and everyone. And the camera app, I think, was a really good example of a terrible Apple app. And of course, there's always been terrible Apple apps. The Notes app is just ridiculous. You still can't export notes as normal text. I think you can export them as Markdown now. But even before iOS 26, you could not export notes. I mean, who are they, why do they think they should lock your notes into a thing here?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
We know that in Apple, there are teams that work on different things that don't talk to each other. And like the camera app has an interface that's different from every other Apple app on iOS or iPadOS. It's totally different.
I respect that, especially given that, I mean, I would say the camera app is probably one of the most used apps on the entire phone.
That too, yeah.
So it has to be universally accessible. And I mean, honestly, I think it was the way it was for so long because people had developed that muscle memory. Unfortunately, I don't think people really developed the right kind of muscle memory because I would say even last week, I was helping a family member with their phone because they wanted to know how to change the night mode exposure. So if you put your phone on a tripod, she was going to take some night sky images. She was going to the middle of the desert to take night sky images. I'm extremely jealous that she got to do this. And I told her about the interface. She wasn't on iOS 26 yet. I told her about the interface where you tap the little caret at the top and then it brings up the options at the bottom. And she had never seen that before. And just the example of this thing that has been in the app for generations at this point was completely out of her perspective, out of most people's perspective.
What percentage of people do you think know that if you tap and hold on the screen, it sets the focus point to a specific area and that you can adjust the exposure by sliding? Right?
Very, very, very small number of people.
Yeah, it's an incredibly obtuse app.
Yeah, in fact, I hope that we just blew someone's mind listening to this, saying you can do what? And literally, that has been there since version 1.0.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Put a link in the show notes to something about that. Maybe to like a support document on the Apple website or the user guide for the Photos app, something like that. Because especially now that it is simplified, the interface is simplified, that people will maybe tap around to find what it can do. I can't tell you how many live photos I have, even though I have never wanted to shoot a live photo other than just to test it. I keep turning it off. It's turned off in the settings. It keeps going back on. I don't know why. It's annoying.
It's your cats. Your cats are turning it on in the middle of the night.
The cats are turning it on. Yes, they're swiping. That's the thing. If you can swipe from the edge to open the camera, they can do that, and they can tap on the settings. But it is one of the most frustrating apps on the iPhone, frustrating Apple apps. But I think this is an improvement. I think your 2 tabs, photo, video, make it a whole lot simpler. Because how many times would you accidentally swipe and you've gone from photo to slow motion video, right?
Yes. So, that was actually part of the reason I wanted to bring this up because you can still do that. Like if you swipe left and right in the middle of the preview area, you can switch your camera modes. Now,
blew my mind. Didn't know that.
Okay. See? Okay. There's that. The interface at the bottom is curious, and it's the thing that I keep running into. And actually, there is a setting that mitigates this, but I don't know that it actually does. So when you're looking at this, you have the photo button and the video button. Photo is typically the one selected. Now, let's say I want to switch to portrait mode. I could swipe left and right on the main preview area, or I can swipe on the button itself. And it's kind of like a weird...
I would expect... So here's a problem. I want to go back to... Do you remember when they did a major overhaul of iTunes And they added a menu above the sidebar that you would click that menu to choose which media type you wanted to see in your library. It could be music, could be videos, audiobooks, etc. Then there was a tab bar above the center to choose different views. So basically, you had these two different options to view things that didn't necessarily correspond, and you had to think in 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional surface. And it's a bit the same thing here, because now I was thinking, okay, if I want to take a picture of something, yes, you said you can swipe on the bottom to change. Well, I guess I can tap and hold to change as well, right? But no, I tap and then I get things like flash and live and timer. And so it's still got multiple ways of accessing certain things.
Yeah, and that's actually the thing that I've run into. If you do tap and hold and like actually hold for like more than a second or so, then you do get all of your options so you can slide between modes. But if you just tap on the photo button, it brings up those options that used to come from the top caret. So you have flash, live, timer, etc.
And you can still access that from the top right where there's a double hamburger menu.
Exactly.
Or a hamburger sliced in 3.
Yes. Or
it's 6 little dots.
6 little dots. Or
which is odd because there's only 5 options in the dialogue.
I have 7.
So here's interesting. If I tap the thing at the top right, the whatever hamburger, I see 5 things. Then if I tap on the bottom, I see 6 things. Then if I tap on the top, I see 6 things again. So something's broken. That it's not.
Oh, that's curious.
It should be showing the same thing with both actions. So that's a bug. But yes, it's things like flash, live, timer, exposure, aspect, and night mode.
Yeah.
And you get those. No, if I tap on the bottom now, I've just got the 5. Night mode doesn't show up. So there's a bug there. But you have 2 ways to access that dialogue of buttons, which is a mistake.
Yeah. So, well, and let's not forget, if you swipe up from the bottom, not all the bottom, but you just sort of swipe like basically from the buttons or like next to the shutter button, that also brings up that same control at the bottom.
And there I get 6 options. And if I tap on the top, I get 6 options again. Oh, maybe night mode's only showing up if it thinks it's dark enough to use night mode.
Oh, maybe.
If I'm pointing at something that's dark, yeah, that's what it is. So if I point at my desk under the computer, which isn't very dark, it gives me the option for night mode. If I point under my desk lamp, the option doesn't show up.
And that is confusing as heck too.
Yeah, it should be dimmed, right? The settings should be there, but not accessible. What a mess. I mean, they improved it in some ways, but what a usability mess. And one of the problems is it is a very powerful app. You can take photos, you can do time lapse, you can do cinematic videos in F-Log, 240 frames per second, 4K something. And you can also take pictures of your cats. And so it has all these options that it's stuffed into the app that most people, again, will never discover and will never understand. And
one thing that I do like about this is that in the top left corner, and tell me if you see this, is the option to change the format and the resolution.
Yes.
Before, that was a lot more hidden. Here, it's very, very much a clearer option, so I can switch between HEIC and RAW, or 24 megapixels and 48 megapixels. And that's something that I end up doing fairly often, like switching between RAW and HEIC. So having that right there and more obvious has definitely been helpful for me. But I still run into, I want to change my mode, and so I tap the photo thing, and instead I get the different extra options. So I don't know. In some ways it's better, in some ways it's the same, but I think it's better for the very simple reason is you don't have that dumb caret control that opens a little shelf on the bottom. So I'm going to call this.
And this isn't caret as in Bugs Bunny. This is caret as in down pointing arrow.
Exactly.
CARET.
Exactly.
Yeah. No matter what, it's an app with too many features, and they keep stuffing features in. And this is, creeping featureitis is a symptom of all this stuff. And we just get more because they have to have more features every single time there's a new iPhone. There's got to be more camera features, and they're adding them. And most people don't know about them. And why doesn't it tell me okay, it's dark here. Do you want to use night mode? I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah.
If I'm pointing at a person, which I don't do often, do you want to use portrait mode? Or if I'm pointing at a cat, do you want to use cat mode?
Yeah. Well, and it should, well, even more confusion. If you are shooting in the 24 megapixel resolution, if you point it at a cat or a person, it should do portrait mode automatically. But not if you're in the 48 megapixel mode. You have, So, I mean, this is all stuff. By the way, this is a great plug for my book, Take Control of iPhone Photography, which I am updating to cover all the new interface stuff. But there are so many. I know we've talked about this. I think we dedicated an entire episode on the insanity of this. But there are so many little caveats when taking photos with your phone that are just sort of mind-boggling. I discovered as I was doing some shooting. I'll put a link to the show notes. I have an article for CNET that compares the iPhone 17 Pro with the Pixel 10 Pro. Just a shootout in various situations. I took them both, and I realized, and I maybe I just missed this in the details. If you are shooting with the 2x zoom, which is a crop of the main camera sensor, you get a 12 megapixel image. That's it. You can't get a higher resolution 2x zoom shot, which is surprising because when you're shooting the 24 megapixel, when you break it down, it makes sense why they're doing this.
You've lost me. You've lost everyone. If it doesn't do you buy a real camera. If it's 48 megapixels, all your pictures are 48 megapixels.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
Hey, before we finish, I do want to mention this new camera that's been announced because some of us are big fans of monochrome cameras, and apparently Ricoh is making a dedicated black and white camera. So Ricoh's GR series expensive little cameras are about the price of the Fujifilm X100 series. It's a popular camera for street photography. It's got a 28 millimeter lens, but that comes out and all that. It's actually pretty cool. And they're making a monochrome version. There's no idea what the price is going to be yet. It's going to be coming out, let's see, sometime next year. It's got a 25.7 megapixel chip. The Verge says it's a chip. It's called a sensor. And spring 2026. So it's good that there will be another brand of monochrome cameras because Leica has a couple. They have the M series monochrome and they have the Q series monochrome. And it's good to see another monochrome camera. And
remind everybody how this is different from just setting your camera to black and white.
Well, it's better. Basically, a camera sensor has these different layers to capture the different colors of light, and it doesn't actually blur it, but it lowers the resolution a little bit. And the monochrome sensor just captures luminosity, and there's nothing in between that luminosity and the rest of it. There's no color channel information. So it's actually a lot sharper. And one of the things that people noticed, even with the earliest Leica monochromes, I think that were 16 or 18 megapixels, that they had a resolution of about twice that because you don't have that. The Bayer sensor takes 4 pixels and puts them into 1. So the resolution is sharper. There's much better dynamic range, and the highest ISO you can use is a lot higher. So it's very good in darker situations because, again, the light's not being filtered through the different color filters on the sensors. What do you call those? Yeah. Photo sites?
No, actually, I think they're filters that
I think they're actually filters, yeah.
The photo sites, yeah.
So it's basically you have a naked sensor at the back that's just capturing luminosity. And basically it's just a number from 1 to however many it is, depending on the dynamic range. I think 4096 or whatever. Mm-hmm. And each pixel is just the amount of light. So when you get your photos out of the camera, it's all black and white. You're not converting. When you convert in a photo editing app, you can act with the different color channels with little sliders to make the red darker or the blue darker, et cetera, and you don't get that option with this sort of camera.
Super interesting, and actually, I'm honestly surprised that there are no other companies. I asked you when you sent me this link, I was like, well, is Leica the only one that's done this? And as far as we know, we think so.
I think Red has done one, but it's a very expensive, more of a cinema camera than photo camera. And Fujifilm users have been asking for this for years. They want an X100 monochrome.
Yeah.
What does Fujifilm do? They come out with that half frame thing that's overpriced, and the little toy camera.
Which is actually amazingly successful everywhere except for the U.S.
No, it's amazingly successful basically in Asia.
Okay.
I don't think it's successful in Europe. I've seen the same kind of reviews of it being overpriced and people thinking it's a toy, but the Japanese love it. Do we want to quickly do snapshots? Because I do want to mention something.
You go ahead. I don't know that I have one, actually.
Okay, well, I'll just do one because I mentioned it earlier about the enshittification of things, and author Cory Doctorow has a book that came out last week aptly titled Enshittification. Enshittification is basically in his introduction, he talks about the natural history of enshittification. First, platforms are good to their users. Then, they abuse their users to make things better for their business customers. Next, they abuse those business customers to claw back all the value for themselves. Finally, they have become a giant pile of shit. And this is what we see in every platform, in every app, in every electronic device you can imagine. Like Zoom. We're using Zoom. Remember when Zoom was just for doing video stuff? Now it's Zoom AI, and there's all these apps that you can put into it, and you can transcribe, and you can hook up your calendar, and it does meeting notes and all that. I just want to use videos. I don't care about the rest. But the problem is that they raise the price because they're selling the features to whoever. It's like Microsoft Office, which... what is it? Office 365 now, whatever they're calling it.
Yeah.
What do they do for leap years? Do they call it 366 every 4 years? I don't know if that's the logic.
It just breaks.
They increase the subscription price to add AI tools, but if you don't want to use the AI tools, you can't get the old subscription price.
Yeah.
And that is pure enshittification.
Well,
and I would say Apple's camera app is well-meaning enshittification. In other words, they want to add all these features, but they've made it a mess.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. A lot of it, too, is, I mean, Microsoft has to justify all the money that they pumped into OpenAI to do all these things. And actually, your snapshot makes me think of another snapshot, a thing that I saw today. So do you remember Napster?
Sure. I remember Napster. I never used Napster personally.
I never used Napster, but Napster was this music service, like one of the original music services that just at the time was how to pirate lots and lots of music. And then they evolved into basically like a music subscription playing service, kind of like Spotify. I don't think they've had very much success. Well, they just announced this thing called Napster View at napster.ai. And talk about enshittification. It is a little tiny screen that looks like a webcam that sits on top of your computer. And on that screen, which has some sort of lenticular quality to make it 3D-ish, are little animated AI photorealistic-ish avatars of experts.
So, I thought that I'm looking at the website. I thought it was the person that you're talking to in a video chat that would show up in that thing.
No. These are AI avatars of experts. So that, for example, if you need help with your writing or with programming or with your financial stuff, you basically have this little circle of video with a fake person staring at you that you can consult at any time. So you can just sort of look up and say, hey, I don't know what money is. Please tell me. And then you'll probably get some sort of crappy answer that has no basis in reality. So this will be linked in our show notes. I can't believe it's real, but that's where we are today.
It looks real. I just want to point out how stereotypical the AI avatars are.
Very much so, yeah.
The learning mentor is a white guy with glasses and a black turtleneck. The creative guru is an Asian woman with a black shirt and purple hair. JC, the code wizard, she's a they, I would assume, with short pink hair, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And the examples they have there, it hints that there are a whole bunch of others. So I would hope that there would be some more diversity, less stereotypes. But again,
Well, there's diversity.
That's what they put up.
There's people of all colors and all colored hair, but there's stereotypes as well as being diverse.
Yeah. There's not like the black financial expert. No, it's a white bearded guy, right? So, I can't imagine that this is going to go anywhere but in the toilet. And
you remember that barcode scanner shaped like a mouse?
Oh, yes.
This must be about 20 years ago, that the idea was that you would use this to scan barcodes in ads. This is pre-QR code, and they sent them out for free to like 1 million people. I even got one free when I was living in France. I think I sent in a thing from Wired magazine, and they sent me one in France, and I don't think I saw more than 2 ads in Wired that had the code, and I ended up throwing it away.
Yep, I had one too.
Okay,
maybe it's in a box.
So we're going to stop now because I got to edit this one, and well, we'll talk again in 2 weeks. So take care, Jeff.
We'll talk again soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Photoactive. You can find show notes, including any photos we discuss in this episode, at photoactive.co. That's photoactive.co. We couldn't afford the M. You can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/photoactivecast. That's photoactivecast in one word. You can subscribe to Photoactive in your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts. See the links on our website. And think about leaving us a rating or review in iTunes or in your podcast.